Till now, we have been learning some Python concepts. Now the time is to take a look at some Python functions, libraries and examples. So if you're beginners and you follow me from the first lecture, then you're not a beginner now. You have enough knowledge to create some Python programs. So from this lecture, we're going to take a look at some Python examples, Python libraries, inbuilt packages, inbuilt functions and methods. Let's take a look at a very simple Python program to find out the largest number among the three input numbers. Examples always help you to build your logic. So don't forget to practice with different examples. So in this lecture, we're going to create this simple program that can find the largest number among three input values. To create this program, I'm going to start with the input function. So I'm going to get the input from the user. I'm going to create a variable num1 is equal to, and here I'm going to call a function input to get the input from the user. So in this input function, I'm going to say enter first number. And then I'm going to just wrap this function inside a float function because I want to get the value as floating number. So I'm going to say here float, and in this function, I'm going to wrap this input function just like this. Once I have this function, I'm going to just duplicate this line. I'm going to just copy this line, then paste it down here and paste it down here. And then I'm going to change this number, and here I'm going to say number 2 and number 3. And then I'm going to change this text as well. Enter second number and enter third number. When you execute your program, Python will ask you to enter 3 numbers. So once I get all these 3 numbers, let me just find the largest number among these 3 numbers. So down here, I'm going to simply create if and else statement. So here I'm going to say if number 1 is greater than or equal to number 2. So in this if condition, I'm going to check if number 1 is greater than number 2. And I'm also going to add another condition here using AND keyword. So here I'm going to say AND. In the parentheses, I'm going to say number 1 is greater than or equal to number 3. So here at this point, this if statement is going to check 2 conditions. So this condition is going to return true if this number 1 is greater than 2 and number 1 is greater than 3. The number 1 is the largest number among these 3. So here in this if statement, I'm going to say largest is equal to, and then I'm going to specify here number 1. But what if the number is not greater than number 2? In that case, I want to create another condition here. So just down here, I'm going to just create another condition of if and else statement. So here I'm going to create if and else ladder. So here I'm going to say else if, and I'm going to create another condition here. And at this time, I'm going to check number 2. So here I'm going to say if number 2 is greater than or equal to number 1 and number 2 is greater than or equal to number 3. Now in this condition, I'm going to first check if the number 2 is greater than this number 1, and we're also going to check if number 2 is greater than number 3. Then I'm going to execute this if statement. And in this if statement, I'm going to say largest is equal to number 2. And if the second number is greater than 3, then we have the largest number among these 3. Now just out of that, down here, I'm going to just add else statement. And in this else statement, I'm going to just create largest is equal to number 3. Now in this else statement, I'm not going to create any condition because if this number 1 is not greater than 2 and 3, and if the number 2 is not greater than number 1 and number 3, then we have the largest number inside this number 3. So I'm going to just say here else largest number 3. Let me execute this statement and show you the result. So down here, I'm going to say print, and here I'm going to say the largest. When I execute this file, let me show you what would be the result. When I execute this file, the Python will ask me to enter my first number. Here I'm going to say 1, press enter, specify second number. Here I'm going to specify 2, specify third number. Here I'm going to specify 3. When I press enter, I'm going to have the largest number among these 3 numbers. So when I press enter, as you can notice, the largest number among these 3 numbers is 3. Let me execute this file again and change the numbers. Now the first value I'm going to specify is 20. Then I'm going to specify 50, and then I'm going to specify here 10. When I press enter, I'm going to have the largest number 50. At this point, the program is going to execute this second statement. Now once I have these values, let me explain this code one by one. So once you execute this file, it's going to get all the values from the user and store in these variables. So in the number 1 variable, you have value 20, in the number 2, you have value 50, and in the number 3, you have value 10. So here in this if statement, I'm going to check first if number 1 is greater than number 2 and number 1 is greater than number 3, then just specify this number value to this largest variable. You can notice this condition return false because number 1 means 20 greater than 50. This statement is going to return false, and then the if statement is going to check if number 1 means 20 greater than 10, it's going to return true. This condition return false and this going to return true. As I said in the Python lectures, AND is a logical operator. This operator is going to return true if both these statements return true. Otherwise, you will get false as a result. So if this condition return false, this is going to check the else part of this if statement. So in this else statement, I'm going to check if this number 2 is greater than number 1. This return true because 50 is greater than 20. And then it's going to check number 2 is greater than number 3. And this statement also going to return true because 50 is greater than 10. So this else part is going to return true and specify this number 2 to this largest variable and just print this message. For practice, this is super easy example. So I hope you understand how to find the largest number among 3 values. I will see you in the next lecture.